live coastally here in Broward. We pay significant sums in wind insurance. I know I can speak for myself, and honestly, between my wind insurance and my flood insurance, I'm currently paying more than what my property taxes are. Andrew, 11 insurance companies went bankrupt. Private insurance stopped writing policies, so people in South Florida had no way to get any wind insurance. So the Florida legislature formed the JUA, Joint Underwriting Association, and the FWUA, Florida Wind Underwriting Association, and they combined both organizations in 2002 to form Citizens. This is a not-for-profit organization. It's tax exempt and it's a government corporation. So in other words, we own Citizens. So here you go. You've got Citizens Property Insurance, Florida Hurricane Catastrophe Fund, the Florida Insurance Guarantee Association, and the Florida Office of Insurance Regulation, F.A.I.R. That's the regulating body in the state of Florida, so they're important. So if you have a complaint, you're supposed to be able to call them. But there's limits to what you can do if you're insured by Citizens, so far as taking a complaint to them. Jay will talk more about that. There's limitations because it's a government entity where there's more actions you can take if you're having issues with a private insurance company. But Jay will cover that. The connection between the Florida legislature and Citizens Insurance, well, the Florida legislature created Citizens Insurance and the two preemptive organizations that were combined to form Citizens. So they govern all the regulations of insurance law in the state, and they govern everything Citizens does because it's a government-run organization. The Citizens Board of Directors is appointed by the governor, the state CFO, the president of the Senate, and the Speaker of the House. So there's a total of 8 board members, and 2 are appointed by Governor Rick Scott, who's a Republican. 2 the board members are appointed by CFO Jeff Atwater, who is a Republican. President of the Senate, Mike Herodopoulos, appoints 2 board members. He's also a Republican. And Speaker of the House, Dean Cannon, is a Republican, and he appoints 2 of the board members, too. But is this a partisan issue caused by a Republican supermajority in the legislature? No. No, it's not. Citizens insurance issues are not a partisan issue. Most Democrats and Republicans acknowledge that citizens' rates need to be kept under control and understand the damage explosive rates can cause. So who is behind this push to drive up premiums? The powerful insurance lobby and the reinsurance lobby. The high rate premiums are more attractive to private insurance companies with a profit motive, and citizens' rates, in their estimation, are too low. These are some of the friends of the insurance lobby. Now, here we are with all of that. The guy in the middle, Governor Rick Scott, he's a very challenging governor. George Moratis, who represents coastal Broward, votes with the insurance lobby. Ellen Bogdanoff, senator for our coastal area, votes on behalf of the insurance lobby, and so does Bill Hager, Bill Hayes, who's the district up in coastal Palm Beach County. These are really the only people that in our area. All of the Republicans in Miami-Dade do not vote with the insurance lobby. They vote to protect their insurance. They vote to protect the people of Miami-Dade County. So these are people that just vote lockstep with Rick Scott and vote lockstep with the insurance lobby. They vote to get rid of the 10% rate cap, which would be catastrophic. And so I think come November, we're going to have to make some decisions. In the meantime, these are your representatives. Send them letters. Call them. Let them know that you're not happy about this. Don't let this just go, because they're reaching into your pocketbook and spending your money. And to me, that's as much as a tax increase. When somebody spends your money, if you think it's a worthy cause, if we need to all chip in more money for fire, for safety, whatever it is, if Citizens wasn't solvent and we all had to chip in to be solvent, we would all probably be willing to write the check. But that's not the case. And when somebody's reaching into your pocket and you can relate how the legislator is costing you money, you have to make a call, you have to do something, you have to get involved, and you have to try to make things better, and that's what I'm trying to do. Is we have a radical anti-homeowner, pro-insurance lobby politicians that need to leave public office so they can be free to pursue their personal agendas. Because when you go to Tallahassee, I don't care what party you're from, when you go to Tallahassee, you represent the people. The insurance companies have lobbyists, every organization, big banks, they all have lobbyists, but when you're a representative and you're in Tallahassee, you're sent there by the people. You're supposed to represent the people. And I know it's kind of a problem because, you know, it only pays $29,600, so you wonder why all these attorneys and why all these big business people want to go to Tallahassee when it doesn't pay well. Well, now you know. And it's not right. When you go and you say, I'm going to do public service, you should step aside, you should take your personal motives and put them aside, and you are doing public service. So we need to send people to Tallahassee from both parties who are dedicated to public service. Also, citizens needs to be reformed. It is Florida's means of self-insurance against disaster and should operate as the not-for-profit it is supposed to be. And then we need to strengthen the CAT fund. That reinsurance, it would allow private carriers to write insurance policies at a fraction of what the private reinsurance companies want to charge. You know, I mean, companies are making record profits, and people of Florida cannot afford to make any more billionaires. You know, we need to pay a fair price for the fair services in return. So right now I'd like to just introduce Neal. Jay is trying to represent the people of Florida that so far as their insurance needs, to try to make sure people are treated fairly and people are not abused through citizens' practices or those whose motives are behind all of these citizens' actions. So Jay, I have the Citizens Property Insurance Roundtable. This is where I met Jay at the Citizens Property Insurance Roundtable. They held it in Miami, where they had several legislators there. You'll notice several of the representatives on this list who attended this event and were a part of this panel are both Democrat and Republican. This is a bipartisan issue. This is not partisan politics. It's a bipartisan issue. And there's people on both sides of the aisle. Because if there wasn't, a lot of legislation would have already been passed against your better interest, including the takeaway of the 10% cap. So, Jay, why don't you please?
I think it's, that was very well laid out. It's obviously very complicated. And when Gerri says it's not a partisan issue, really, strangely enough, if you look at the Senate and the House in Florida, at least currently, I think there are 28 Republicans and 12 Democrats. And in the Senate, in the House, it's 82 Republicans and 38 Democrats. So what we really have here is not a partisan issue, as she said, but more of a regional issue. The Tampa Bay area, very heavily Republican. Miami-Dade, which is a whole different type of Cuban politics. They represent their policyholders, basically. And if you start adding up the votes from those two regions, regardless of which party the representative represents, you can pretty much get to about 50%. But there are a few strange places in the state where the clear interest of policyholders are being ignored by their elected representatives. And the most extreme example of that is right here in coastal Palm Beach and Broward. Because you've got a representative who's not really a leader on the issues, but who votes lockstep with what the insurance lobby wants him to do. You've got a senator who does the same, who owns an insurance agency. So we try, not everything is a battle. We try to have a lot of interactive conversations. I mean, Monday, I'm meeting with the chairman and the president and a couple of other folks from one of the Florida domestic carriers. We're trying to look for win-wins. But in the meantime, insurance consumers are really under the gun. Gerri mentioned that the legislature put a cap of 10% per year. That's as high as citizens can increase their rates. Those backdoor rate increases, let me tell you what we're doing about some of them. How many of you have citizens? Pretty much everybody, okay. How many of you have had a windstorm mitigation rates reinspection, okay? How many of you have lost credits? Slightly. Okay. Well, she mentioned that the average. Look, in order to get those credits in the first place, what did you have to do? You had to hire a qualified inspector who came out and filled out a state form to certify that you had outside openings, that you had certain roof-to-wall connections, and those people were hired by you. So, there was probably a few instances of fraud where somebody paid somebody to say they had roof-to-wall connection they didn't have. Now, we don't. Of the hundreds of reinspection reports we see, we don't see the outright fraud. Because I think if people know they've committed outright fraud, they're not going to probably send it to us. If they're happy, we don't hear from them either. We have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people. When you start looking at their inspection form, you look at the photographs, they're in pencil width to that. There is no way that 3/4 of those re-inspections should result in the loss of discounts. So we're doing a couple of things about that. The first is, we have set up with inspectors that are not involved in the Citizens Program a review process. There's a few technical bugs, but it should be online within a couple of days. It's accessible from the F.A.I.R website. Some people can't wrap their head around it. The reality is there's this huge, enormous lobby that represents the insurance industry. Okay? Does anybody here know what reinsurance is? That's when an insurance company basically cannot cover with its existing surplus the possibility of a major storm, so they have to go buy on an annual basis insurance coverage. Do you know what that costs? It's totally dictated. It's all of these companies are usually based in the Bermuda or the Bahamas, except for some companies, like State Farm, for example. State Farm has a subsidiary in Florida. They hire what's called an MGA, a Master General Agent. They pay them twice as much as the average. They have a sister company that sells reinsurance out of the Bermudas, or Bahamas, wherever it is, Bermuda. And, but yet the company in Florida is the only thing that the OIR, the Office of Insurance Regulation, can look at. Of course, they've sucked all the money out, so when they go to apply for rates, they apply for 14 or 20 or 30% because they've already sent the profit off to their sister companies. So what happens then is you really have two insurance industries. Three, actually. Two insurance industries, and then the reinsurance industry. The reinsurance industry is not regulated. It is completely terrible public policy, terrible everything. We don't even know what the returns are. We don't even really know if they're going to be able to pay what they say they're going to be able to pay. But when you're a domestic insurance company and you can't cover because you don't have surplus, you have to buy this reinsurance basically. And it costs for every premium dollar, you might spend as much as 50 cents on the dollar to buy that expensive reinsurance. Okay? Let me show you what Citizens claim paying ability is right now. Okay? Citizens has it's about 6.2 right now in surplus. That's money in the bank. $6.2 billion that's available to pay claims. That's about 2 times as much as the combined surplus of all the private carriers in the state of Florida. They have what we call pre-event liquidity. That's bonds that they've gone out and they've sold to give them additional cash. That amounts to $5.1 billion. They have another $1.5 billion through, another about $8.3 billion through private reinsurance and the CAT fund. They really have not relied very heavily on private reinsurance because they have the access to the CAT fund. Okay? So they have the ability to pay almost $20 billion. Right now, today, we haven't heard it. It's a lot.